Jesus made a specific promise to his closest friends the night before he died. He said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you." If you have ever held on to that verse during a difficult week, you might have hit a wall. When the pressure spikes, when a relationship fractures, or the bank account empties, that feeling of tranquility is usually the first thing to vanish. It often feels like the promise dissolves exactly when you need it most. This diagram shows two ways of looking at stability. The foundation on the left represents the version of peace we're used to, a smooth, flat surface. As long as life stays still, we feel fine. But an earthquake destroys that kind of peace. The surface cracks, and everything built on top falls apart. Jesus expects the earthquake to happen. His promise focuses on a foundation anchored in bedrock, something that holds even if the surface opens up and swallows everything you have built. This raises a question. If this unshakable peace is real, why did the men who heard Jesus say it scatter in terror just a few hours later? Their panic that night was a matter of timing. On this timeline, the disciples were on the left side. The cross hadn't happened yet. The theological ground for this peace wasn't established. But you and I live on the right side of that line, in the aftermath of the resurrection. Because we are standing on the finished side of history, the foundation the disciples were waiting for is already beneath our feet. This profound peace is fully accessible to us today. We can see how this works in practice through three historical witnesses. The first is a man named Stephen. While an angry mob was hurling stones at him, the text says he looked up and saw Jesus standing in heaven to receive him. Instead of looking at the flying debris, his attention was completely anchored on a higher reality. He still felt the physical pain of the stones. But the storm lost the final word over his experience because his vision was somewhere else. Real peace comes from shifting your vision to a reality the trouble cannot reach. The second witness shows us how to prepare. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were ordered to bow to a statue or be thrown into a fiery furnace. They refused, telling the king that even if God didn't rescue them from the fire, they still wouldn't bow. They had settled the question of God's goodness long before the heat arrived. When the crisis hit, they didn't have to invent a new decision in a moment of panic. They had already done the work. This peace is a packed resource you carry into the fire, born from a decision made before the emergency starts. The third witness is Jesus himself, facing a high-stakes interrogation. He stood before the Roman governor, Pilate, who claimed to have the power of life and death over him. Jesus responded by telling Pilate that his authority was only borrowed from above. His composure came from the settled knowledge of who actually controls the outcome. True peace is the factual knowledge of who holds the ultimate power, regardless of who appears to be in charge. There is a massive difference between these historical stories and your daily reality. Most of us aren't facing a fiery furnace. We are carrying the persistent weight of heavy daily responsibilities. It's the constant low-grade grind of financial strain, daily traffic, and the endless demands of raising a family. These are two different kinds of earthquakes. The top graph shows a single sharp spike, an acute crisis. The bottom shows a long, jagged wave, the constant burden of daily life. Comparing your daily composure against a martyr in a singular moment of crisis is completely unfair. Applying these tools of peace across a grinding, endless routine is genuinely harder than facing one single fire. Jesus never promised that the daily hustle would magically end. He promised his unshakable presence inside the daily shaking. We often imagine peace as a permanent, unbroken emotional state of calm. In reality, it feels much less tidy. This kind of peace is not a state you achieve, but a person you return to, over and over again. It is entirely human to get swallowed by stress for days at a time and forget this is even available. The daily, sometimes hourly act of dragging your attention back to him, that returning is the actual practice of peace.